Welcome everyone to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende. Bienvenidos todos al servicio dominical de los Unitarios Universalistas de San Miguel de Allende. We are located on the lands of the Chichimeca, Otomi, and Nahua peoples, and are making community by Zoom across Mexico, Canada, and the USA. Nos encontramos en los pueblos de tierra Chichimeca, Otomi y Nahua. Hacemos comunidad a través de Zoom en todo México, Estados Unidos, y Canadá. We are glad to be here together today. Estamos contentos de estar aquí juntos hoy. This is a place where we can bring our whole selves and be accepted as we are with love and friendship. Este es un lugar donde podemos traer todo nuestro ser y ser aceptados tal como somos con amor y amistad. My name is Ann Kuffner, and I will be your service leader today. Mi nombre es Ann Kuffner, y seré la líder de servicio hoy. Before we move into worship time, we would like to share a few announcements. Antes de pasar a nuestro tiempo de adoración, nos gustaría compartir algunos anuncios. Reverend Tom would like to remind everyone that the email scam is still alive and circulating. If you receive an email supposedly from him or possibly from Arlene, our board chair, asking for assistance to buy gift cards, please ignore it and do not open. Neither Tom nor Arlene would ever solicit money or gift cards from our members. If you receive any type of strange email from another name you recognize as a UU member, please report it to Reverend Tom. I was one of those people that got it, so I can attest to that. If we have any visitors here today, would you please stand so that we can see who you are and personally greet you and ask you where you are from after the service? Welcome. For those on Zoom, if you are visiting, please type in your name and how you heard of us in the chat box so we can greet you personally later. After the service, those on Zoom are invited to stay connected and visit with others in the main room for discussion. We invite those of you who are here with us at the Aldea today to join us for coffee and cookies after the service. Feel free to take your coffee and check out the information table next to the refreshments over here, where you'll find lots of information opportunities offered in regards to our fellowship. You are also welcome to come to our Thursday lunch and games event here in San Miguel and to Tom's coffee hour on Zoom during the week. Check your order of service for the details, and don't hesitate to bring your friends. We do record our Sunday in-person services. Just go to our website, UUFSMA.org, and click on Services at the top, then Previous Services. And while on the website, please check out various events sponsored by the fellowship, as well as information on how to become a member. Now, before we begin our opening words, Arlene Van Noot, our board president, would like to speak for a minute about about an exciting upcoming celebration that is being planned for this fall.
You know me so well. Good morning, buenos dias. I have been told by a fairly reliable source that we have quite a few party people in our fellowship, which is good news because we have a party coming up for our members that will be a completely new affair. So we have a date, a venue, a great meal, but we need help with the small details that will make the event really special. We've got 3.5 months to put this all together, so no big rush, but we need to start planning now. So things like invitations, decorations, name tags, raffle tickets, whatever we dream up. We need you party animals, and You guys know who you are. So please join me today during coffee hour. I'll be over here by the piano and definitely looking for a planning team to help us create a fun and unusual event. Gracias.
And now to Reverend Tom for the opening words.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be with you this morning. In just a few weeks, I'll be back with you live at the Aldea and even able to climb all those stairs without a cane. Again, thanks to all of you who have continued to send me speedy recovery wishes. They have worked. It'll be a joy to be with you in person. But I want to say there is something very special about being with you via Zoom. Each Sunday, we have 30 or 40 or even 50 people joining into our service this way. Folks who are away from San Miguel for a season. Folks who have moved away but still feel very much a part of this community. Even folks who found us on Zoom and have become part of our congregation without ever even visiting San Miguel. Folks who are in San Miguel, but for mobility or health reasons, or maybe just because they desire to stay at home in their PJs, find it easier to be with us on Zoom. You are an important part of our congregation, both on Sunday and during weekly activities. Sometimes, if you're in the room at the Aldea, it's easy to forget that as much as half of our congregation is with us via Zoom. The Sunday Service Committee and I have pledged to help us connect these two groups even more and to welcome Zoom participants into various parts from our service, what I like to call the UUFSMA diaspora. And in today's service, 3 folks from our Pennsylvania diaspora will be participating in the service: Bonnie McDowell, Andrea Kaufman, and Kathy Canepa. And we hope in weeks ahead, there will be others as well. And now we go to Bonnie and Andrea, who will introduce themselves and lead us in a responsive call to worship.
Good morning. I'm Andrea Kaufman.
And I'm Bonnie McDowell. We were active members of the fellowship from 2016 to 21, but then we moved back to the States.
We are delighted to participate in a service again from our home in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
We will lead a responsive reading titled "We Gather in Reverence." You can find it in your order of service, and it's in the gray hymnal as number 439.
Bonnie will read the first line, and then I will lead you in responsive reading with the second line in italics in the order of service. We will all read the final 3 lines together.
We gather in reverence before the wonder of life,
The wonder of this moment,
the wonder of being together, so close, yet so apart.
each hidden in our own secret chamber,
Each listening, each trying to speak.
yet none fully understanding, none fully understood.
We gather in reverence before all intangible things that eyes see not, nor ears can detect, that hands can never touch, that space cannot hold, and time cannot measure.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, Andrea. It's so good to see you in our service. And now, with the sacred fire that burns in each of us, we will light our chalice flame. This single flame reminds us that in all our great diversity, we come together as one. This flaming chalice marks our sacred time together as an hour set apart from the rest of the week, when we slow down, reconnect with others, open our hearts and minds, hold each other in the world and thought and prayer, listen attentively to explore new truth and meaning, and give thanks for all our many blessings. and as well receive hope and blessings from each other. Yes, we gather in reverence, but we also gather to celebrate our lives and all that this community gives us. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit. Please remain standing for the covenant.
And now I invite you all to join together in reciting this fellowship's unique covenant. This is our promise that we aspire to, of how to be in relation to each other and the larger world, first in English and then with Hillary leading in Spanish. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
this congregation is a caring community. We're here for each other in good times and difficult times. If at any time you need the assistance of a minister or help from our care team, please let us know. Information on how to contact us is on the website UUFSMA.org. You should know that even when I am away, I'm still available for pastoral care. Do not hesitate to email me and we'll set up a time to talk. As you know, an important part of our service each week is the sharing of significant joys, sorrows, and concerns of our members and friends. And for each joy, sorrow, or concern, we light a candle, indicating that that person or that thought, that prayer is held in all of our hearts this morning. And as a reminder, if you wish to have a joy, sorrow, or concern shared in an upcoming service, you can email it to me. If you're going to be at the service in person, you can also write it on a card, and one of the ushers will provide you with that as you enter. And if you are on Zoom today and wish to share one today, you can type it into the chat now. Our first candle we light for Bill Dulcimer. Bill is in the hospital in New York City. He's being well cared for by both the great medical team and his partner, Janet Freed. He has to have some more tests, but hopefully he'll be released on Monday. And I know he would appreciate get well wishes from you. Our second candle is for all those who have long-term health issues that are keeping them from being active in our community. We pray for their recovery. We light a candle of joy and connection for all those who are able to be with us via Zoom. How wonderful it is to have a couple of you participating in the service today. And what a joy it is to see 40 of you, I just checked, on Zoom this morning. And now let's go back to the Aldea to see if there are any joys and concerns that were submitted on cards. And I'll take a look to see if we have any in the chat on Zoom.
You here. Is it on? Yeah. Okay. First of all, best wishes to Liz Stone, who celebrated her 88th birthday this week, and she's here. Congratulations, Liz. And from Michael, we have the most fabulous joy of finally returning to the best place in the universe, beloved San Miguel.
Okay, we have a few on Zoom. Let me get those. It's a joy to see Diane and Bob with us. Susan Del Clamo says that her friend of 55 years passed away last month in Mexico, and his family has abandoned his body, and she's concerned he'll be placed in a mass grave, which is the practice in Baja. She's sad and upset by that. We have one here, the concern for the freedom of Washington, D.C. local community. And actually, a couple of folks have expressed that. Okay, our concerns, like the last one, are certainly not limited to just our members and friends. We light a candle of great concern for the hardworking immigrants in the United States, many from Mexico, who are living in fear of being arrested, being denied due process in violation of the U.S. Constitution. We light a candle for those of us who are guests in Mexico, not for us, but for our gratitude and the blessings that we receive by being welcomed here, and for our concern about the way the U.S. is treating Mexicans. We light the candle for the many ways that present U.S. policy is having a negative impact in Mexico, on Mexicans also in the U.S., traveling to the U.S., and right here in Mexico. We light our usual blue and yellow candle for Ukraine, all those who suffer because of the effects of this unjust and unprovoked war. We pray for a ceasefire and a just and lasting and fair peace. We light our other large candle for all those affected by the war in the Middle East, the lives lost and displaced, and those suffering due to the severe lack of food and medical supplies. We pray that humanitarian aid will be allowed to reach them immediately before it's too late. We also pray for the release of the Israeli hostages that have suffered horribly at the hands of Hamas for more than 600 days. We pray that the Red Cross will finally be allowed to minister to them and for their release and the return of all hostages, those alive and those who've passed away. And we pray for a ceasefire, the end of killing, and for a path to peace, which recognizes the equal worth and dignity of every person. Our final candle is for all those joys, sorrows, and concerns unspoken, but which are held in our hearts today. Join me together in a spirit of prayer. Spirit of unity, in which we share and find strength and common purpose. We turn our minds and hearts towards one another, seeking to bring into our circle of concern all who need our love and support. Those who are ill, those who are in pain, either in body or spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. We acknowledge that we are part of a web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. May this time of shared joy, sorrows, and concerns lead us to a better understanding of our community and of the precious gifts we possess, which enable us to minister to each other. Amen. And I now invite those of you who wish to come forward to light a candle in silence and give witness to whatever you are holding in your heart this morning to do so as Paula permits us with yet another beautiful musical selection.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Canepa, and I'm co-chair of our Sunday Service Committee, and it's wonderful to be with you today. Our reading is an excerpt from On Reverence, Renewing a Forgotten Virtue by Paul Woodruff. Reverence is an ancient virtue that survives among us in half-forgotten patterns of civility, in moments of inarticulate awe, and in nostalgia for the lost ways of traditional cultures. Now, we have the word reverence in our language, but we scarcely know how to use it. Right now, it has no place in secular discussions of ethics or political theory. Even more surprisingly, reverence is missing from modern discussions of the ancient cultures that prized it. Reverence begins with a deep understanding of human limitations. From this grows the capacity to be in awe of whatever we believe lies outside our control: God, truth, justice, nature, even death. The capacity for awe, as it grows, brings with it the capacity for respecting fellow human beings, flaws and all. And this, in turn, fosters the ability to be ashamed when we show moral flaws exceeding the normal human allotment. The Greeks before Plato saw reverence as one of the bulwarks of society. And the immediate followers of Confucius in China thought much the same. Both groups wanted to see reverence in their leaders, because reverence is the virtue that keeps leaders from trying to take tight control of other people's lives. Simply put, reverence is that virtue that keeps human beings from trying to act like gods.
And now I invite you to rise in body or spirit to sing hymn number 205, Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Malcolm and I have begun planning a trip back to France. Due to COVID and health issues, we've not been in several years, and it's one of our very favorite places to visit. So, of course, as you begin planning a return trip to a place like this, you think about the experiences that you've had in that particular place in the past. I'd like to share with you one of those experiences that returned to me as I was collecting my thoughts for this sermon. It was many years ago, during one of our visits to our favorite little village in southwestern France. We took a few days and headed south to visit friends who had a home in the Pyrenees. It was a beautiful place, high in the mountains. We arrived midday, got settled into our room, and were invited to go on a hike, which we did. Malcolm had paired off with one of our friends, and I was walking along with another. We came to a point when we were so struck by the beauty and the power of our setting that we stood still to take in the incredible vista. In front of us, the most pastoral setting of sheep grazing in a lush green field that I have ever encountered. To our right, a young deer just watching us. And to our left, a view across a wide valley of mountain peaks with the low light of early evening illuminating their beauty. The only noise were our own footsteps and the wind. There was both a sense of serenity and humbling majesty. It was an awe-inspiring place, not a place for personal ego, not a place where we were in charge, but a place of deep spiritual connection. As the clouds rolled over us and our trail disappeared in the distance, we sensed our smallness in relation to the vastness of this place. The small talk between us had ceased, but we were clearly connected to each other in the beauty of this place in a way I don't often experience. We were quiet for some time, and then my friend spoke. She said, "Here is where I feel reverence." The word reverence captured the essence of that moment for me too. Days, weeks, months, even now years later, when I think back to the experience, I feel a sense of awe, of letting go of ego, and of being humbled by the experience of something so much greater than mere human beings and over which we have no control. That is, I re-experienced a sense of reverence. Reverence is a word we don't often use much in Unitarian Universalist circles. We're not likely to revere sacred objects or images, as some other faith traditions do. I'm afraid some of us like to think of our tradition as rather irreverent. Yes, we do go against the grain of much that is considered religious. And sometimes it's harmless, and we even have a bit of fun, self-mocking humor. In the church where I'm minister emeritus, the Friday afternoon bridge group is jokingly called the prayer group. One of the members of that congregation was the cartoonist Al Ferguson, who poked fun at religious beliefs all the time in the New Yorker magazine. I officiated at his memorial service and was given copies of a few of those cartoons, which in fact do hang in my study. Yes, they give us a chuckle, but I think we have to be careful. The line at which we cross into irreverent behavior is a cloudy one and different for different folks. Sometimes I hear statements from UUs that suggest a certain kind of religious arrogance, even making fun of practices and things that others consider very sacred. Many of us are not comfortable with the word reverence, and that discomfort is not limited to Unitarian Universalists. In his book called Reverence, Paul Woodruff tells us that in a society today, we scarcely know how to use that word. Today, I hope to bring some new understanding to that term. And with those insights, argue that reverence is something we all need to not just experience, but practice, cultivate, if you will, in our lives. Reverence is not just a passing nice feeling. It is something that changes us in our relationship to others and to our world. It is reflected in the ways we behave. I'm going to make this bold assertion. If everyone lived their life with a greater sense of reverence, we could transform the world into a very different place. Paul Woodruff put it this way: if you desire peace in the world, don't pray that everyone shares your beliefs. Pray instead that all may be reverent. Well, there's the premise. For a few minutes, I'm going to let the teacher in me out and take a rather didactic approach to this topic. So let's start with the basics. Reverence is a virtue. That sounds simple enough, but that leads to the question, what do we really mean when we say something is a virtue? Let's start answering that question by observing that a virtue is not the same thing as a moral principle or law. Of course, moral principles are important. We are a denomination united around them. But learning a principle is not the same thing as cultivating a virtue. A virtue is something deeper. It is the capacity to act in the right way in certain situations. Virtues of strength of character. They grow in us by being used. They're developed in communities like this one, and they depend upon those communities to reinforce them. They are what allow us to live well and avoid bad choices. Now, for most of us, reverence would probably not be at the top of the list of what we would consider to be the most important virtues. I bet if I asked you what was the primary virtue, you might mention justice or courage or truth or loyalty or honesty. Probably not reverence. However, the Greek humanist philosopher Thucydides considered it the primary virtue that we as humans need to cultivate, and I think I agree. So what is this all-important virtue of reverence? Well, the idea of reverence is rooted in an understanding of human limitation. It starts with the sense that there is something greater than human beings and outside of our ability to control. Towards whatever that is for you, God, nature, justice, science, we stand humbled and experience a sense of awe. It is the humbling experience of being in awe that will discourage us from acting as all-knowing and all-controlling towards others. When we recognize our own limitations and smallness, we develop respect for others whom we may have some kind of authority or position over. Now, surely at times, we'll act without reverence, and we'll stray from that understanding of our place in the grand scheme of things. We should then experience a sense of shame for that behavior and then adjust our behavior towards others, hopefully learning greater reverence from our mistakes. Reverence develops with practice. A well-developed sense of reverence is what keeps us from acting as if we are gods. In Woodruff's words again, reverence is the well-developed capacity to have the feeling of awe, respect, and shame when they are the right feelings to have. Certainly in the Western Jewish Christian tradition, there are many teachings and practices that encourage reverence. One New Year's Eve, I spent some time in our parochial church during a traditional Catholic service known as the Adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. On the altar was the monstrance, a large gold cross with sunbeams projecting from it, and with a glass disc in the center containing a consecrated communion host. In this ritual, the devout Catholic believes that Jesus is on the altar in front of them. They were on their knees while the priest was offering prayers and revering the sacred object with incense. The church was nearly full with people kneeling in reverence. For me, there was a spiritual connection not to the object on the altar, but with the sense of humble prayer of those around me. I suspect that something greater than their individual egos would surely play a part in how their new year would unfold. Their experience in the parochia was not unlike mine in the Pyrenees. Now, we just sang that wonderful hymn, Amazing Grace. Many will certainly disagree with some of its theology, but I believe it's a hymn about reverence. It certainly recognizes human limitation and describes a sense of awe towards a God who bestows undeserved blessings. There's a word in that hymn that gets some folks stirred up. The word is wretch. We UUs tend to think of ourselves as too good to be labeled wretches. You'll note that in our hymnal, they've even given an alternative word. But truth be told, the hymn writer John Newton was a wretch. He was harsh and brutal as a slave trader. But in a great storm where he experienced his powerlessness, the sense of awe for something greater came over him. It translated into shame for his slave trading, eventually into public condemnation of the practice. He developed a sense of reverence from his experience and became an ordained minister and one of the most famous hymn writers of all time. When we practice reverence, we acknowledge that there is grace in our lives, whether it's God's favor or the inherent goodness of our neighbors or nature's blessing. It's not of our making or under our control. When we acknowledge that, and I mean really and profoundly, not just giving lip service to words of false humility, then we act reverently. Certainly there are many examples of the life-changing power of reverence in our Christian and Jewish heritage. But some of the best examples actually come out of the practices and teachings of reverence, not from Western theist traditions, where reverence to God is the focus, but from non-theist ancient Greek and Chinese traditions. As I mentioned earlier, back in the 4th and 5th century BCE, the humanist Greek philosopher Thucydides declared reverence to be the most important of all virtues. Most of the ancient Greeks advocated reverence as at least one of the important virtues because they feared gods that intervened in human affairs, particularly with punishment. But Thucydides, a humanist who did not believe in the gods, nonetheless argued for the paramount importance of cultivating the virtue of reverence. What he feared was not the gods, but human arrogance and its consequence in human affairs. Indeed, the Greeks coined the term hubris, which is the opposite of reverence. It is the great crime of tyrannical leaders who become arrogant and shameless, and who, because they feel no connection at all to anything higher than themselves, show no respect to people they see lower than themselves. I'm sure that, like me, you see this on display in many leaders today. Like the Greeks, the ancient Chinese, particularly in the teachings of Confucius, understood the importance of the virtue of reverence to a society. In these traditions, cultivating reverence is a vaccine against tyranny and moral decay. Acts that demonstrate reverence instill reverence in us, and that's important. For Confucians, the importance of reverence is often demonstrated in careful observance of ceremony, such as the elaborate Chinese tea ceremony. The congregation where I'm Minister Emeritus had many girls adopted from China during the days of the one-child policy when parents only wanted boys. We worked hard to include elements of Chinese culture to honor their heritage. Each year, we celebrated the Lunar New Year. We had an elaborate tea ceremony, the beautiful ritual of just serving tea first to the elders, then to each other, in a very structured, formal way, cultivated a sense of respect and reverence. I think not unlike the very formal Catholic practice of venerating the Blessed Sacrament. As the Chinese and the Catholics teach us, the personal virtue of reverence often is expressed and is reinforced by ceremony and ritual. In truth, although some may cringe a bit when I say this, probably the most important thing we do here each week is engage in rituals that cultivate reverence. Just coming together as a ritual, lighting our chalice, reciting our covenant, singing hymns, sharing our joys and sorrows. These are rituals that remind us that a good life is not just about ego-driven personal success. A good life is one lived with moments of great connection to others, where we together experience our human limitations, where we, through these shared experiences, develop greater respect for each other, for all people, for all living things, and for our entire planet. Reverence is not just something for people with strong religious beliefs. Reverence has survived through many changes of religious beliefs and is strongly cultivated in societies that are largely agnostic. The same kind of reverence can be supported by many different beliefs. In truth, although religion can be a place where reverence is practiced and developed, as I hope we do in this congregation, there is no necessary connection between reverence and any religion. In fact, sometimes the greatest irreverence is shown by those who at least proclaim the strongest religious beliefs. Religious fundamentalists, meaning those who claim to know the will of God, but put themselves in the position of acting as God, be they Christian, Jewish, or Muslim, have lost the humbleness that comes when we know our human limitations and thereby have no respect for others who believe differently. At the other end of the theological spectrum, the same thing is true. There is a certain type of extreme humanist which we might call a fundamental humanist. Those who approach life with an arrogance that nothing is beyond the range of human control and hold that their beliefs are simply superior to those who see the world through more traditional religious lenses. There is an absolutism here, not unlike the absolutism of religious fundamentalism. But the arrogance of fundamentalist certainty, both the arrogance of fundamentalist certainty and humanist superiority, are the antithesis of practicing reverence. Each fails to recognize human limitation, the starting point in developing reverence, and therefore cannot develop the kind of real respect for others that only comes from that place. In his book, Woodruff asserts that reverence has more to do with politics than it does with religion. And boy, is that a temptation to digress. Authoritarian hubris, the very opposite of reverence, dominates the political landscape. Know-it-all arrogance and treating human beings and the natural world any way that is expedient to serve your interests seems now to be the norm. Nothing is shameful. No apology is ever necessary. There is no higher standard than political expediency. Whatever fulfills their agenda is right, no matter how those they see as beneath them or how the blessings of the natural world are impacted. The more a leader lacks reverence, the less important virtues like truth, compassion, and fairness are. When the ancient Greeks and Chinese knew, and we seem to have forgotten today, is that the virtue of reverence is most important in our leaders. It is the only thing that keeps them from acting like gods. But it's not just in our leaders. Sadly, reverence is also lacking in so many places in our society. In our daily lives, we are losing the rituals that promote reverence. I know many of us live alone, but when we have the opportunity to share a meal with others, how many of us take the time to check in or share an expression of gratitude for the day or for the meal? Maybe even light a candle. Woodruff suggests that mealtime has now just become feeding time, and home is turning into nothing more than a kennel, resulting in losing the true opportunities to promote the virtue of reverence in our homes. The fear is that we are moving to a world without reverence, and the consequences of that would be dire. In Woodruff's words, without reverence, things fall apart. People do not know how to respect each other and themselves. An army cannot tell the difference between what it is and a gang of bandits. Without reverence, we cannot explain why we should treat the natural world with respect. Without reverence, a house is not a home. A boss is not a leader. An instructor is not a teacher. Without reverence, we would not even know how to learn reverence, to teach reverence. You must find the seeds of reverence in each person and then help them to grow. That's what we do here each week. The seeds of reverence are within each of us, ready to grow. This beloved community is soil for their healthy growth. The rituals we share, not just on Sunday morning but at gatherings during the week, are the water that softens the shell of the seed and causes it to sprout. And we are all the gardeners who continue to care for that reverence growing in each of us. In this time of worship and in our lives each day, we do have those experiences of awe that can, if we pay attention to them, help us to develop a greater sense of respect for others and help us to avoid blind arrogance in our beliefs and our behavior. Just think, if everyone could cultivate this virtue of reverence, what a different place our world would be. And as I do often, I'd like us to conclude this sermon together with a hymn. And as it seems that I seem to be in a rather didactic mood, I thought that I would explain a little bit about what we'll be singing. The lyrics were written by UU Quaker Roberta Bard in 1993, and that text won a competition held by the Hymnal Commission seeking new hymns. The words are set to the much-loved tune, Heiferdal, a Welsh word meaning delightful, agreeable, pleasing, pleasant, beautiful, fine, sweet, melodious. The tune was written in 1844 by Roland Hughes Pritchard. Over the years since, dozens of texts have been sung to this tune. New versions appeared as theologies and society changed. You'll note the tune in a slightly modified version is used in one of this congregation's favorite newer hymns, Blue Boat Home. Please now rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 207 in the Gray Hymnal, Earth Was Given as a Garden. The words will also appear on the screen.
Tree of life.
Unitarian Universalism is a grand vision of a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. That vision is embodied in a few large congregations, numerous mid-sized congregations, and many, many small congregations. No matter its size, every congregation depends on each of its members. Each one of you, by your commitment of time, energy, and resources, helps make that grand vision real. Individually and together, we are Unitarian Universalists, building a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. And now your contributions will be collected and gratefully received.
Thank you for being with us today. And a special thank you to all those who participated in this service and to our staff and volunteers who do all the behind the scenes work to make it flow seamlessly. It's a tremendous amount of work week after week to present you with a quality worship experience. And when you have a chance, please be sure to share your gratitude with those who make that experience possible. Please remain seated for a wonderful postlude Paula has prepared. And then for those on Zoom, I'll be with you for some good conversation. And for those at the Aldea, please go grab a cup of coffee and please take some time to reach out to new folks and folks you have not met yet. We're always a welcoming community, and please help us do that. Our benediction, or good words to take with you, come from John Milton. Gratitude bestows reverence, allowing us to encounter everyday epiphanies, those transcendent moments of awe that change forever how we experience life and the world. We now extinguish the flame that we lit at the beginning of our service, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of justice. Those we carry with us to a world so much in need of them. And may peace be with you till we meet again.